We apologize for that, but the hashtag still remains hashtag KBC Afri Thursday on Twitter. That was Brenda Fassie with Vulindela. Such a beautiful song that just lives through and through time. And that is what happens when you just be true to yourself and sing from within. You know, we all draw inspiration from different places, but when you draw it from the genuine part of your being, trust and believe that and that will leave a footprint in the sands of time. So right now we want to just cross over to where Doreen Arange is. She is at Hilton. Remember, there will be the high-level discussion in regards to the African Disability Protocol that is happening there. So I just want to hand you over to her to just let us know what is happening as of now. So Doreen, over to you, my dear.
All right, thank you very much, Jane, and a very, very good morning to you. So this chilly morning, I'm at the Hilton Hotel where the African Disability Protocol event is taking place here. And this event has been organized by the African for the Blind, which is in partnership with a couple of organizations like the Africa Disability Alliance, and also there's another organization, the CBM. So they will be telling us the major reasons why they decided to organize this event, but also just to note that this is also as a result of the discriminations that the persons living with disability face. And this is also one of the reasons why they decided to organize this event, a very, very important event. And just also to note that the African Disability Protocol was adopted by the African Union in January 2018. This was last year, and they seek to address some of these issues faced with people living with disability. Among them also issues to do with how family caregivers can come into place, as well as issues to do with customs and traditions. If you may need to note, more often than not, oftentimes people, especially living with albinism, they normally face the issue of being sacrificed, and so being taken as sacrifice in some parts of the country and some parts of around the Eastern Africa. So they'll also be telling us how these issues to do with customs and traditions come into play. And so as of now, I'm just joined in by the executive director, this is of the African Union for the Blind, to be telling us more about this particular event and why they decided to organize this event. So a very, very good morning to you, sir. So maybe you can just tell us the major purpose for organizing this event.
Thank you for this opportunity. Yes, we are here today to discuss around the process of ratification of African Disability Protocol. The way you said, it has been adopted, but the process of ratification is still long to go. We want Kenya to be one of countries also to be front or champion on ratification. And we are here with a member organization and other stakeholders in the same process to see how best we can take this process in front within Kenya. We have members of government, we have DPOs, disability organizations around, those who are located in Kenya. Together we want to find the best way of advocate for ratification. That is the main issue it brought us today.
All right, maybe you can tell us the importance of this ratification process and why it has taken so long.
As all policies or treaties, it takes long because there is different ways of ratification depending on countries to countries. We believe the government, they have will to do so, but also there are procedures which sometimes take time for them to decide. And we are sure about Kenya, because today we are working in Kenya. Kenya is committed through the summit. Last year there was a meeting in the UK, which Kenya also was part of organizers. And from that meeting, they have committed to take serious the process of ratification. And I know there is meeting going on time to time, seeking the best way of approaching the decision makers for them to have it in their agenda and as soon as possible they to ratify. That's why we're here for short discussion to know how best they can do for this process to take place as soon as possible.
All right, thank you very much, sir. All right, and that was Lucas Amoda, who is the Executive Director of the African Union for the Blind, just explaining to us the importance of this particular event and also the ratification process, which is taking a bit of a longer time. But they are hoping that this process will be quickened so that these persons can actually have their rights respected, realized, and protected. And so now I'm joined in by Madam Margaret Zulu, who is the Director of Programs and International Relations at the African Disability Alliance. So probably you can tell us your role in this particular function.
So our role as African Disability Alliance is that we are a technical agency that works with different Pan-African disability persons organizations, and we also work in partnership with CBM. And so our role is to really convene different organizations and CSOs to also have dialogue around the Africa Disability Protocol. And we also work closely with the African Union to make sure that all the processes in terms of writing this protocol and also having it ratified are followed. And so we raise awareness on the rights of persons with disabilities through the local Pan-African disability organizations. And so here in Kenya, we work with AFUB, and the key message is around the ratification of the African protocol. And this is the protocol that we are talking about. And this protocol is an extension of the UN Convention on the rights of persons with disability. And really this now is in the African context because it speaks to issues of right to education, right to employment, right to accessibility for persons with disability. But it also speaks to issues that are critical for children with disability, critical for women and girls with disability, but also ensuring that there's access to information for people with disability across all sectors. So that is why it's really important that the Kenyan government ratifies this protocol. We are aware that the Kenyan government has already made a commitment to having this protocol ratified. We need at least 15 countries to ratify this protocol, but we're also aware that the AU has sent a note verbal and a letter of commitment to the Kenyan ambassador in Kenya, and this has been received. And so we know that Kenya, being the economic powerhouse in the region and an influencer, would like to be the first one to actually ratify this protocol because there are a number of countries that are looking up to Kenya. And once Kenya takes the first step, then we'll have a lot of other countries following suit.
All right, just before we go, you mentioned something to do with creating awareness, but before you tell us about the challenges you face, especially in terms of creating awareness, probably you can just explain to us why is it that it's very important for Kenya to be the first one to ratify this kind of document?
It's really important for Kenya to ratify this document because persons with disabilities, their rights are being abused. We are aware of that. We are aware of killings of persons with albinism. We are aware of harmful cultural practices where a child is seen as unacceptable just because they have a disability. And so it really becomes important to talk through these issues because they affect everyone in the community. But it's also important not only for the whole community and the whole country to know about the rights of persons with disability, but for the persons with disability to actually have a say in the kinds of policies that affect them and to have a say on the needs that they have in terms of access to education, access to health, and access to a lot of other things that everybody else enjoys. It's about upholding and respecting their rights as well.
All right, so on the issue of creating awareness, you get to understand that sometimes some customs and traditions may also limit, such organizations to create awareness. So what are the challenges you faced as an organization in regards to creating awareness to such kind of issues?
The challenges would be perhaps specific to different contexts, and in this context we would perhaps have a challenge of being able to go deep in the rural areas where some persons with disabilities are actually located. That is why in our awareness raising we work with local disabled persons organizations who have access to those places, and so we strengthen that by ensuring that we have local people that work on the ground and reach out to the unreached, because we cannot leave anyone behind. We cannot afford to do that.
Thank you very much, Madam. So that was Madam Margaret, the Director of Programs. This is the Africa Disability Alliance, just explaining to us the major reason why they decided to partner with the African Union for the Blind for a better cause of dealing with persons with disability. And so now I want to rope in another member of the organization. This is Madam Nomvoyo, right? Nomvoyo Mabusela, who is the Regional Program for Development. And they're also one of the biggest donors for this kind of event. So I just want you to tell us why you decided to be partners and specifically donors for this event.
So I'm from CBM, Southern Africa, and CBM, first of all, believes in partnerships. We believe in partnerships in order for us to attain the global goals that we want, specifically attainment of the rights of people with disabilities. And so it made sense for us to partner with ADA, knowing ADA as one of the biggest Pan-African organizations, in fact, federation in Africa, with a host number of federations that belong to their membership. And also with their high level of expertise, we knew that our partnership with ADA would lead us towards attaining the not only regional goals, but also the global goals. And so again, when we decided to go into partnership with ADA, we collaborated with the EU, who made the funding available for CBM to be able to embark on this partnership of funding the Pan-African Grant, which is otherwise known as RADI. Secondly, we do believe in the participation, not only just attending events, but meaningful participation of people with disabilities. And so it was important for us to ensure that the component of this grant will include ADA, who is the lead implementer, making sure that they also fund other federations in the continent, which is why you also see AFUB here. They were one of the federations who also received a grant from ADA. So the reason for that is because we believe that for participation to happen, and for participation to happen meaningfully in a way that gives results, and we are very clear now that the results that we want is for the rights of people with disabilities to be upheld. And in fact, as we speak now, we are here because we would like to see the government of Kenya rectifying the Africa Disability Protocol, which was adopted last year at the AU. But we know the challenges that are faced by federations in terms of capacity, not only funding, but also making sure that events like this actually do take place, and that we get to invite government, we get to invite media, we get to invite relevant stakeholders to say and express what is it that we want and why we want it. And so therefore, this grant from ADA is funding 13 different federations across the continent, and so far the work that has been done has been really great. So from the donor perspective from CBM, I came to Kenya to actually see what has been happening since the grant was given. And I have to say, I mean, I came knowing that there have been gains, but I have been pleasantly surprised by the gains that AFUB has made. And of course, AFUB is not working alone, because as I said before, at CBM, we really, really pay attention to partnerships and we pay attention to the capacity development of DPOs and federations. And I'm happy to say that we have seen all of these.
All right, and obviously I know you come in as a donor, but maybe we can talk about the framework that is normally offered to national governments. Do this framework and how they're supposed to deal with such kind of persons, do they work? Are there any challenges experienced?
Well, one of the challenges which, it's not unique to Kenya. This is something that we find all over the world, but it becomes a particular challenge in Africa because of the poor socio-economic circumstances that are faced by different countries. So whilst we know that government in Kenya and in other countries in Africa do see a need of having a protocol that protects the right of people with disabilities. And a lot of work has been done as well in terms of trying to uphold the rights of people with disabilities. However, we felt we needed a document that will clearly pave and give us a pathway in terms of how government can then engage. Whilst this is the case, whilst government is receptive, whilst government has been doing a lot of work in this regard, the challenge is, again, funding. It's a challenge because one of the things that we face is the lack of implementation. And it's not, what we have found is that it's not often the lack of political will or not wanting to afford people with disabilities their rights, even other marginalized groups like women and children, but it's often the funding that becomes a barrier to implementation. So we want to assure government that there are gains to be made in rectifying the protocol. Whilst we may have funding challenges, but we do know that there are a number of civil society organizations and donors, including CBM, who are in the front lines giving the support they can in order for implementation to happen, in order for people with disabilities to be able to live these rights. But we do urge and we do send out a call on government to come on board, come and form partnerships with us. Let us have discussions. Let us have conversations on what is possible. It's not going to happen in 1 year, but we can surely make some strides if we work together.
All right, and just before we wrap up this conversation, obviously we know that one of the key issues that will be sought to be addressed today by all these organizers coming into place also include the issue of women, children, as well as the elderly, especially those living with disabilities. But how is poverty coming in? How does poverty come in terms of persons living with disability? How is that a factor?
Well, what we believe as CBM and what has been researched and documented is that one of the contributing factors to disability is actually poverty. So we cannot address disability separately from addressing poverty because these are interchangeable. They feed onto each other. We do know that one of the determinants of sustaining the gains that we are making is to reduce the level of inequality, is to reduce the level of poverty and hopefully eradicate it. But we are aware of the socio-economic challenges that our continent faces, but we would again say we call on government, civil society, and federations of people with disabilities to work with government in terms of holding government accountable and saying, if you are in agreement with us that our rights are important, and so therefore you should be in agreement with us that these rights will only become a reality and a lived reality once we can also address socio-economic circumstances and conditions that perpetuate poverty and therefore also perpetuating disability.
All right, thank you very, very much, and have a very good morning. All right, so this is just what is happening here at Hilton, where the event for the Africa Disability Protocol is taking place. Like I said earlier, the event has been organized by the African Union for the Blind in partnership with CBM as well as Africa Disability Alliance, and CBM comes in as one of the major donors for this event, and we'll just be able to speak to their heads. And she was telling us that we cannot talk about disability and evade poverty, just saying that she really hopes that governments for the entire African continent can actually come into play and assist, their people. So in terms of just dealing with this issue of disability, because obviously we can't talk about disability and evade the issue of poverty. So this is just what is happening here. More people are still continuing to come in. It's a very, very important event. Remember, the major purpose of this event is to find possible ways in which the rights of persons living with disability can be respected, realized, and protected by the society. Jane.
All right, thank you so much, Doreen. A very necessary discussion that needs to be had on such a national platform right there. Remember, that is a high-level discussion that is happening at the Hilton here in the city, all about the African Protocol Disability. And later on, we'll also be linking with Doreen Arange. She will be at the KICC grounds here in Nairobi, where the Kalasha Film and TV market is happening. Remember, it's a 3-day affair. It started yesterday and it's going to go through today and tomorrow. And remember, there is cash prizes to be won. So if you are a filmmaker, you are in the film industry, a stakeholder in whatever capacity that you come in, just go there, go pitch your idea. There is a 500 grand to be won in all the 4 different categories, a total of 2 million Kenya shillings to be won by tomorrow. So we'll be checking in with Doreen to give us more information on what is happening on that end. But for now, we want to have a quick look at the roads and see what is happening across the major roads here in the city. So Traffic Marshal in studio today is Ram. So over to you, Ram.
Thank you very much, Jane. We would take a look at the roads right now. At the moment, it's now 9:03 a.m. Let's start with Langata Road, all the way coming from Ongata Rongai. We are having some slight traffic build-up from this area. Let me